Hi, my name is Daria Marusyk. I'm a head of communication and sustainability at Ukrainian Fashion Week, and also I'm a project leader of Be Sustainable Fashion Summit. I would like to thank you for everyone joining us today. Today we are having an online edition, so I would like to start with some welcome words and introducing Be Sustainable Fashion Summit to you. Be Sustainable Fashion Summit, this is already the third edition of our summit and of our project. And this is the largest, actually, event in Ukraine that is dedicated to conscious fashion, to responsible business, to innovations and networking. Our project is aimed to increase the level of expertise of Ukrainian fashion designers, of Ukrainian fashion professionals, and that's why we eager to exchange experience as much as possible. That's why we are having today two panels of summit. One is international, and now I introduce to you the international panel of it. And moreover, you will be able to see the Ukrainian experts via our Ukrainian Fashion Week YouTube official channel. As I already said, we are holding the third edition of Be Sustainable Fashion Summit, and this time the topic of our project is digital innovation and sustainability. And I would like to introduce to you our partners. DHL Express Ukraine is our official partner, and this is the pioneer of green logistics. Demonstrating the active corporate and social position, DHL supports young designers, their desire to create new responsible fashion. DHL has set a goal to eliminate completely harmful emissions from logistics by 2050. Also, I would like to introduce to you our community and our partners of the conference. Global Fashion Exchange is a sustainable fashion platform that transforms people's perception of sustainable development and promotes positive change. Circle of Fashion Summit by Lablaco. This is the Global Collective Action Summit, supporting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Also, I would like to introduce to you the Swap Chain. The Swap Chain is the first digital clothing exchange community where each product journey and history can be traced on blockchain, as well as the ownership and the fashion environmental footprint. Global Association for Sustainable Society. This is NGO headquartered in Berlin, Germany, founded to connect creative, business, NGOs, and academic change makers through the inclusive education, employment, events, and media program. Moreover, I would like to introduce to you our priceless media partners. Luxiders magazine is the must-read media for everyone interested in sustainable culture. Written in English, German, Spanish, the magazine represents global resources for sustainable brands, creative professionals, consumers who want to improve and increase their knowledge about sustainability and connect with their sustainable creators. Marketing Media Review is an online featuring top news from the world of marketing, media, communications, and creativity, exclusive interviews, columns, cases of international and Ukrainian brands. And I would like to mention that this year, Be Sustainable Fashion Summit is supported by US Government Public Diplomacy Small Grants Program, Education, Culture and Youth 2021. And of course, I would like to thank American Embassy for their priceless support and would like to give a word to Bryan Furman, Assistant Culture Affairs Officer at US Embassy.
Дякую, Дар'ї. Доброго дня усім. Мене звати Брайан Фурман. Я заступник аташе з питань культури Посольства США в Україні. Мені дуже приємно бути тут сьогодні та допомогти розпочати Український тиждень моди. По-перше, я хотів би привітати Ірину Данилевську, засновницю Українського тижня моди. Як я вже сказав минулого разу, я вражений, як майстерно ви організували цей проект, який обіцяє бути дивовижною програмою в ці непрості часи. Дякуємо, що вже вдруге Посольство США буде частиною цієї події. Я також хотів би подякувати Олексію Данилевському, Вікторії Завгородній, Дар'ї Марусик ще раз та решті команди Української ради моди за організацію Be Sustainable Fashion Summit, який Посольство США фінансує через програму малих грантів публічної дипломатії уряду США. Посольство США гордістю підтримує вже другий Be Sustainable Fashion Summit, який включатиме семінари та тренінги для молодих українських дизайнерів з таких тем, як Sustainable Fashion, утилізація текстилю, дизайнерські та інноваційні бізнес-стратегії. Тема цьогорічного саміту – цифрові інновації та стійкість. Я глибоко переконаний, що саме інновації та нові підходи допоможуть зробити моду більш стійкою. Текстильна та фешн-індустрія – одна з найбільших галузей економіки у світі. І це передбачає велику відповідальність за сприяння екологічної сталості разом з покращенням умов праці у галузі текстилю та моди. Be Sustainable Fashion Summit має на меті підтримати українських дизайнерів у впровадженні Sustainable Business практик, які є ресурсоефективними та сприятимуть збереженню навколишнього середовища. Ці зусилля особливо важливі тут в Україні, де дуже стрімко розвивається текстильна та модна індустрія. Ми раді, що цього сезону до нас приєднається така велика кількість експертів з усього світу, у тому числі і екопідприємець із Нью-Йорка та експерт Sustainable Fashion Патрік Тафін. Я також радий повідомити, що в рамках нашого гранту Патрік та Українська рада моди восени представили проєкт SwapChain – спільноту цифрових бірж одягу, яка дозволяє користувачам відстежувати екологічний слід предметів. Хочу ще раз сказати, що дуже радий приєднатися до вас сьогодні, і я з нетерпінням чекаю на тиждень моди, стилю та професійного розвитку для молодих дизайнерів. А зараз прошу вашої уваги до спікерів саміту.
Hi, thank you everyone for being with us here today. Thank you so much for having us here. We are super happy to be speaking about digitized and connected circular fashion system. But before we dive into how digitization can enable circularity in fashion, I would just like us to take a step back and also think about how digitization has changed other industries. So if we take the film or the music industry with Netflix or Spotify, basically we passed from millions of plastic CDs being produced, shipped around the world, and then sold in stores, to music and film being streamed through one main platform. And with Netflix and Spotify, they give us access, which is fantastic, right? If I want to listen to a song or just watch a film, I can pull my phone and then start doing that basically everywhere. But what I think about that is like the most interesting thing is how actually the way that we're measuring things in the industry are being changed. So how we can create new KPIs and not having these millions of plastic CDs and measuring how many records or how many CDs are being produced and sold, but also how many streamings can one song have. And what it all boils down to is how can we reuse the same MP3 file over and over and over again. And now let's go back to fashion and think of how it operates today, right? We know that this industry is far from connected. It has many different players, interests, and also big challenges ahead. On the inside, I guess the industry is still being separating technology from sustainability, so it's still built in silos. But similar to what happened to other industries, connecting the products will enable circular business models and disrupt the industry as we know it. But I would like to say that instead of MP3, blockchain will become the new MP3 for fashion. If this is not entirely clear, don't worry, we'll explore together with Alexia this today. I'll start by giving you a brief outline of the evolution to circular retail, then how large the digitized circular fashion market is, and finally just giving you some practical examples of how we are activating collective change at Lablaco and Circular Fashion Summit. So to understand really how do we move from or how we move away from our current take, make, waste linear model into a circular one, let's think about traditional retail and how it operates and how the model is set. So in traditional retail, the store is at the center of the ecosystem. So let's say if I want to buy a t-shirt, I would have to go to the store. If the store is closed, then I cannot interact with the brand or the retailer. And if it's open, that's perfect. Then I buy the t-shirt. But what happens after I end up using this t-shirt, no one knows. And a similar thing happens with the omnichannel model, with the customer centricity and all the Amazons and the Alibabas, right? They can anticipate our needs and follow our behaviors. They can perhaps push us into buying not just one t-shirt, but 10 different styles. But similar to what happened in the traditional retail landscape, this data-driven approach really fails to know what will happen to that t-shirt or to our products once they arrive home and when you don't want them any longer. So the main problem, I would say, behind the fast consumption approach is then that there's no accountability and no responsibility for what happens to all of our garments. And again, if they get thrown away in the bin or burned or donated and then shipped to the other side of the world, when products do not have these strings attached, then no data that connects them throughout the supply chain, the lack of transparency and traceability that we've all been talking about, and also another big problem, which is fast consumption, that what it happens naturally when there's no strings attached to the products. And if we move a bit away into then what we are trying to create with circular retail, we are moving from a customer to a product perspective. And why is this so important is because when we connect the items, then we can track them. We know what is happening to them, not only before they get sold, but also after. And again, having the data streams then allows us to have, for example, access to the t-shirt life cycle and being then able to see all the actors involved in producing it. So from the design to the manufacturing, also which channels are the items or the t-shirt being distributed in, the first customer, the second customer, which is also super exciting, and then how to take care for the products. And finally, if you don't want the t-shirt any longer, then who is responsible for collecting and recycling those items? So all of this together brings us then to the part of products not being consumed, but rather owned, and moving away then from the traditionally wasteful, disconnected, or rather linear fashion industry to a fully traceable one, where the products are connected, we have zero waste, and it is a circular fashion industry. And again, I'm just going to pause here and say that, of course, for this change to happen, we need to bring in collective effort because it's not an overnight effect, and it's just rather a taste of what could happen once technology and circularity are aligned. And this ultimately will allow us to pass from a consumption model, like I was saying, to an ownership one. So ownership, which allows us for products to be loved, to be kept, and to be cared for. And I know that there's no silver bullet when it comes to sustainability. We all know that. But this industry has huge challenges, different challenges. However, allowing products to be traced and connected is the first step towards then capturing value and then catalyzing circular economy models. If this seems a bit distant, it's completely fine, but also think about the fact that blockchain, it has been around for 10 years now. And there's around 70% of companies that will be investing in IoT in the next 5 years. And what we want with this is not for brands and consumers to try to understand what blockchain is. I don't really know what MP3 is, right? I just use it. But it's rather for them and for everybody to understand how blockchain could bring value into this industry, or how it is bringing value into this industry, and how can it help us solve some of the problems that we have today. And if you're like me, perhaps you've sometimes wondered how big is the fashion market, or for circularity, is there a market? And back in November 2020, we published the Circular Fashion Report together with Vogue Business, PwC, and Thesis, Startup Bootcamp, ESSEC University, Wageningen University, many amazing partners. And what we shared is that the circular fashion market is not only big, but it's actually bigger than the current fashion industry. So again, adding up to the business case for sustainability and also debunking the myth that sustainability is only good for the environment and not good for business. As you might know, as you can see here on the graph, when it comes to the current fashion industry, its estimated value is around 3 trillion, but we calculated that the new circular fashion industry is worth around 5.3 trillion. So this speaks of the incredible opportunity for innovation and change that this industry will account for. And going back to the model, you can see that on the linear fashion industry, we have the supply chain with all the actors who are in a very simplified way responsible for materials and the production. Then we have the brands who we said they take care of the design. Again, it's a very simple model. And then retail, who is the one who deals with the use of products. But as you can see here, there's also a very big part of the model in itself, as big as the other parts, is disposal. And when we talk about disposal, I'm not referring to recycling facilities and all the amazing innovation happening in that space, but the billions of garments that are being discarded and burned. And also just think about the 500 billion products that are lying around in warehouses, or of all the clothes that we don't longer want to use and it's just in our closets. So if you look at the other model, if we move into the circular industry, it basically has the same actors, more or less. However, there's no disposal or waste, because as we know, then waste is eliminated by keeping items in the loop. So looking back, you can see that we have the supply chain, for example, that there are many exciting innovations happening around materials and production processes. With the brands, they are doing something like zero waste design and also production. And another very important part of this model, as you can see here, is the community. So instead of retail, we wanted to use the word community, because if we think about it, everybody has become a retailer today. Almost everybody or every one of us has sold something online, it being via Instagram or Facebook or Vestiaire Collective. It really doesn't matter. The important part here is that the community aspect is really fundamental for changing and pushing the industry, because we as consumers, we know that we have an incredible power when it comes, and responsibility when it comes to how we take care of our clothes, how we keep items in the loop, and then also how we can demand justice and to push for change within this industry. And just to close off, another very important part layer here of the model, as you can see on the dotted line, which it hadn't been considered before, is digital fashion, which is actually projected to grow to 1 trillion by 2025. So it's definitely a big space to watch. And in the report, we also presented a selection of different players within the different areas of circular innovation, just to illustrate how the industry is moving forward. And we really wanted to honor the fantastic work of several startups and change makers that are making circularity a reality and that are innovating in their own realm. And I can just mention really quickly some examples. So when it comes to waste reinvention, we have players like Reniso here in Sweden, which are transforming textile waste into new viscose. Then we have Material Revolution. We mentioned Spiber, a Japanese biomaterial company that is creating this material out of spider silk protein. On product digitization, we have MXR in the UK, and they are developing a technology which is capturing 3D textures for digital products and design prototypes. On the optimization and upcycling, we mentioned the incredible work of Queen of Raw, who has this marketplace for dead stock fabric. In digital retail, we mentioned Unspun, based in Hong Kong, which are making this 3D scan made to measure jeans and also collaborating with brands like Weekday and Levi's. And finally, when it comes to digital circularity, we have Spin, which Alex will talk to you a bit more about in a second, and also share some of the work that we're doing at Circular Fashion Summit and at Lablaco.
Thank you. So as Paula detailed, the future of fashion is circular, and to raise awareness about how we plan to move towards this vision, and most importantly, act on it, we created the Circular Fashion Summit. So a bit of background before I dive in. The Circular Fashion Summit is backed by Lablaco. So we're not an events company, we're a tech company. And what we do is we provide circular retail solutions, essentially using blockchain to allow end-to-end transparency and traceability of wearables. And then we package all this data to show it to the end customer. So the summit is composed of two sections. We have on one hand the panel talks. That's where we gather leaders of change in design, technology, and sustainability to discuss these topics. And then on the other hand, we have the hubs. So that's where we exhibit every year 10 different independent sustainable designers and 10 innovators that are providing sustainable solutions. And as a whole, we call it a global collective action summit because it's not only about talking about these issues, but also about doing something about them. So that's why we set 3 laser-focused goals, and these support the SDG goals. And then we spend the following 12 months achieving them. And we do this with the help of people and companies that are helping us and are partnering with us. So likewise, the summit is not just a one-day event, but really a 12-month program where we hold monthly seminars around different relevant topics as well. And since last year, so since 2020, in response to COVID-19, what we did was to take the entire experience to virtual reality. So we were really lucky to get the green light from Grand Palais and Chanel to recreate this iconic building that you see here on the slide in virtual reality. And we definitely will be keeping this format in the upcoming years, especially given the amount of CO2 emissions that we saved from having people not have to fly from all over the world. And these are the 3 goals. So these change every year, and the common link between them is the Lablaco technology. So that is really how we keep track, measure, and bound everything together that we do. So in this case, for goal number 1, we partnered with denim manufacturer Saytex to produce 20,000 sneakers out of upcycled materials. And what we will be doing is to drop half of them in an exclusive market drop, and then the other half will be donated to young girls in Afghanistan. And this is in collaboration with an NGO called Afghanistan Libre. So how the tech applies in this case is that when you scan the item, you're able to see the entire journey of how that product was upcycled. But then on the other end, you can also make sure that the shoes are actually reaching the girls, which is what needs to happen, and doesn't end up, for example, in the black market, which is unfortunately a common issue with these types of donations. Goal number 2 is all about digitizing items, so connecting them as high in the supply chain as possible. So for example, here we are creating a pair of sunglasses with a brand called Nocesso, and we're using recycled plastics that are saved from reaching the ocean by an innovator called Plastic Bank. So how it works in this case is we implement an NFC chip in the glasses, and then when it's scanned, you can see that entire supply chain. And goal number 3 is about recirculating items to end post-consumer waste. So we do this by activating swap chain events across different stores and fashion weeks around the world. And what it consists of is that everyone can bring a garment and exchange it for another one from the rack. So there's no monetary transaction. It's all about extending the life cycle of garments. And we actually had one here in Ukrainian Fashion Week not long ago. So this ties in perfectly with our next slide, because just like with Ukrainian Fashion Week, we are supported by a global team of over 70 catalysts who help us achieve these goals. So here you can see some faces that have been there from the very start, such as Christine Goulet from Kering. We got Julie Pelipas, former Vogue Ukraine editor. There's Ortolata Castro from Fashion Revolution, who's actually speaking right after us. And of course, there's Daria from Ukrainian Fashion Week, and they're all doing a fantastic job to help us reach the goals. So as mentioned, how we make it all happen is with the Lablaco technology that ties it all in together. So reiterating what I said earlier, Lablaco helps brands and retailers to connect their products at any level of the supply chain. And what we do differently from other traceability systems is that we package this data for the end customer in an engaging way. So I'll also be showing you about how this looks like in a minute. And the system is composed of 2 platforms. So comparable to how there's an Uber app for the rider and one for the driver. In this case, L+ is the merchandising system. So that's the backend where products are uploaded and connected. And then Spin is how you go to market and face the end customer with shoppable content. So to give you an example of how this whole ecosystem flows, with the goal number 2 that I was talking about, it was Kering who acted as a catalyst connecting us to Plastic Bank, which whom we're creating this new product, and it will be fully connected on L+, and then launched to the market through Spin. So finally, all these results will be revealed in the upcoming circular fashion reports that Paula was talking about earlier. And in addition, this product will actually also have its own digital twin that can be worn by our avatars in the following summits in virtual reality. So that's an exciting little add-on that we're working on as well. So about the tech, what's mainly important to understand are the features that contribute to circularity. So the first step is to attach QR codes or NFC chips to the garments, depending on the nature of the garment. And traditionally, if 3 million copies of, say, this top that I'm wearing are produced, there would only be one landing page. So that is the checkout page, right? But what we do is to create 3 million different web pages. So each one contains the timeline of that individual garment. And this is crucial to ignite circularity because that's the only way that you can trace each journey individually and then retarget that end customer with take-back programs, for example, and implement circular retail business models. Then we manage all these circular business models by merging all the ways to acquire a garment onto one platform. And this is really to solve the issue that we have right now. So for example, if you at the moment want to purchase firsthand, you need to go to one platform. And if you want to purchase secondhand, you need to go to another platform. So to make all this experience more seamless and also allow brands to instantly activate their circular business models, what we do is to include see now, buy now, pre-order, swap, resell, rent, all in one platform. And we'll actually also be adding a product care option as well. So this will be linking you to dry cleaners and repair shops. So it's essentially anything that contributes to extending the life cycle of a garment. And to help brands shift their KPIs and keep them on track, we show the brands their impact calculation of how much they're contributing to the CFS goals, and as a byproduct, how much they're contributing to the SDG goals. And then there's the social aspect. So here is where we encourage influencers, content creators to promote these impactful products with a system that we've created. It's an automatic revenue sharing system. So how does this all look like for the end customer? So on the first column here, you can see what would be the product page. And here's where you can learn about the journey, the composition, and the impact of the product. So say it's secondhand. You can see that Luisa owned it before you. She bought it at Selfridges. It's an original skim product. So you know this because all the business accounts are verified, just like they would be on Spotify. And you can continue up the supply chain all the way up to the fiber makers or the recyclers. And likewise, because it's end-to-end transparency, if you're a brand, for example, that sells through a retailer, you can still see who bought your item. So you can still see who is owning that and not lose them along the way. Then the second column, you can see that every member of the journey can add their own photo and caption. So in this case, you have one of the owners showing how she wore the top. But likewise, a brand can show, for example, the artisan that has been working on the garments, or the factory can show the factory conditions. So it's really adding this layer of human touch that is very needed in the fashion industry at the moment, and can even almost develop a community around one single item with this simple feature that is so engaging. Then we also show the end customer how much impact their purchasing decisions make on the environment. And we put this in a way that is relatable. So for example, here it says 1 round trip from London to Paris by train, instead of just saying 40 kilograms of CO2, which perhaps many people don't know exactly what that means. And then the social interface aspect of it allows only business accounts, so this is including the companies and the content creators, to upload the shoppable content through a digital wardrobe. So you're not competing with the noise of people's personal content, it's only the business accounts. So tying it all in together and bringing back in what Paula was talking about, we must shift the industry's KPI from how many garments are sold to how many times the same garment can be reused. And at a post-consumer level, this can be done in a number of ways. So you can apply take-back programs, recycle, upcycle, swap, resell, rent, repair, and even more. And so the goals that we set at Circular Fashion Summit serve to ignite these actions, and the tech is the key tool to achieving them. So in the case of goal number 1, the system allows us to trace and verify the use of upcycled materials, as well as the ownership of the product. In the case of goal number 2, the system helps us not only show the end customer how their garment has been made and where it comes from, but also allow all the layers of the production side, trace the ownership of the garment, and retarget that end customer. And in the case of goal number 3, the system allows us to extend the life cycle of garments in an engaging and transparent way. So if what we've been talking about is something that resonates with you, whether you'd like to join our global family of catalysts, or you have any questions about the topics we've been discussing, or would simply like to start a conversation, we are very glad to connect.
Мы знали, что вам было тесно, поэтому мы создали совершенно другой ММР. Больше контента, больше тем, больше экспертов, больше амбиций, больше влияния. Погрузитесь в диджитал, мобайл, пиар, соушал медиа, дизайн, креатив, маркетинг, медиа, назначение, тренды. Погрузитесь в новый ММР.